Shalom, shalom. Today I wanted to speak about and share my experience with having anxiety attacks and how the Creator blessed me to learn of the Hallelujah Acres diet, and He helped to heal me of that through that diet. In my 30s, and this was supposed to be the sisterhood class that I was going to present this past week. Today is June 2nd, and I was supposed to present this last week for sisterhood, but due to storms in Alabama and our lights were out in our area, I didn't get a chance to. So this is would have been that class. But in my 30s, I started to have anxiety attacks, or I had my first anxiety attack. One day while I remember the first one that I ever had was I was in my kitchen at the dining area table, and my children were homeschooling. They were doing their homework, and I was cooking and doing breastfeeding counseling paperwork, because at that time I was working for the health department from home, doing some breastfeeding peer counseling, and it was paperwork associated with that. So I was at the kitchen table doing that and cooking dinner, I think. So I just remember getting up, and then as I tried to sit back down, I remember falling backward. And then I remember going to the floor, and I thought I was having a heart attack. I felt, I hate to say pain, use that word, but an oddness in my chest. So I thought I was having a heart attack. But anyway, the ambulance was called, and they didn't have an ambulance available. And so my husband called a brother from nearby, and him and his wife came to pick me up and take me to the hospital. I was carried out of the house because at that time I could not walk out of the house. And I think I was carried into the hospital, and I was put in a wheelchair from there. And then I was taken to a room and placed in a bed. So I remember from there still talking to the brother's wife that was there also. And I remember I slightly remember being hooked up to an IV. And as we were talking, I didn't realize at the time that my breathing had started to get better. I really didn't notice it at first. But a doctor came by and asked me how I had been sleeping. And he just quickly popped in the door and asked that. I said, well, I hadn't been sleeping that much. I've been sleeping like maybe 4 hours a night or something like that. 4 hours or less a night or something like that. He said, well, what you were having was an anxiety attack, and we put something in your drip for it. And then he popped out of the door and he left. And so that was my first anxiety attack, and my first ever experience with it. Up until that point, I hadn't really had any health problems at all. Nothing more than maybe a common cold, and every now and then over years, periodically maybe some kind of virus. But other than that, that was like it. I just wanted to mention at that time, I don't think I handled stress well either, which leads me kind of up to this point. It's important. I know I'm not going to say I think. I know it's important to learn how to handle stress. And for different people, different things can cause stress. Sometimes what's stressful to somebody else is not stressful to another person. And then sometimes there are situations that no matter who it was happening to would be stressful. So I'll use myself for example. For me at that time, if I had a schedule of my day in my mind, for anything to change that would cause me stress. Now for some people that wouldn't cause them stress. For me, that would cause me stress. And then it would cause me to get upset. Because I had a plan in my mind of how my day would go. And then if something threw me off, then I just would not handle that well. For example. So overall, I wasn't handling things well in my mind. And I say it that way because sometimes we're not handling things well in our mind. We're not speaking about it, but then we're not handling it well. And then that can turn into stress in our bodies and cause us to be ill. So it's important to you know, I learned the hard way over the years. It's important to handle, first of all, sometimes you do need to speak on something that's bothering you. Or deal with situations, whether it's a person, people involved, or whatever. Deal with situations, handle it, and then let it go. Then, if sometimes even if you're selling something out in your mind, it's important to settle it out in your mind in the right way and still let it go. Because all of that can backfire on you if it's not handled right, and you can end up with health problems, whether it's anxiety attack or your body handles it in some other form. It wasn't meant for us to live. The Creator did not design our bodies to live in a stressful state over a long period of time. When I look down, I'm just looking down at my notes. And I knew around about that time, I also knew that I needed to do better. At that time, I knew that I needed to do better in my thinking, or that was on my mind too, around about that time. And sometimes I feel like, I use this situation to progress me along in doing that. Because at one point when I was experiencing anxiety attacks, any negative thought I would have, I would automatically start to go into one. Just anything, I would automatically start to go into one. So it really made me have to be well aware of what I was thinking, how I was handling things, and like that. I had to really be, that made me have to be more and more aware of that. And I know I've learned over the years that sometimes the Creator can use situations to help us to move forward in our character, or to do better or to improve in certain areas. Now, why did I decide to go over this topic for a sisterhood class? Because I had, I know over the years that my husband has shared with people that he would say barley max help heal my wife of anxiety attack. So I heard him mention that recently, and then I realized later on that there was more to it than that. But I guess it was a little more to it than me just taking the barley max. And so I thought the sisterhood class would be a way for me to share it with you all, and maybe you don't need it, but maybe somebody you know this would be helpful too. I'm just looking down at my notes. So at the time, I'm not sure how I originally found out about this diet. I had been receiving the magazines, and the magazines were like testimonials. It was like health information and stuff like that as a part of it at the time. I was not on the diet at the time. I was just getting magazines and I think reading over the health information and things like that. But when this happened, I I took a real look. I got one of the magazines I had, and I started to read on about the diet. They also had an extra little thing, a little more you would do being on the Hallelujah diet if you had a serious illness too. So there was like the basic diet, and then that was that part. So I ended up going and reading, I want to say, looking into the magazine about the basic Hallelujah diet. And the diet is plant-based, 100% plant-based. And you eat 85% raw. So in other words, you're eating mostly raw. And then 15% cooked food. And then also part of that diet, especially when you're trying to heal, is juicing. And also a part of it is using barley max, which is barley grass ground into a powder. So I believe there are different companies that sell barley powder. Hallelujah Acres, which I think is the name of the company, they call theirs barley max. And so this is what it looks like. So at the time we ordered this. At the time we bought a juicer. The juicer was called I had a Jacqueline juicer at the time. And what I would juice at the time would be, and the goal of the diet, I know at the time, if I'm remembering correctly, was for you to drink 3 glasses of fresh vegetable juice every day. So I was juicing, I want to say cabbage, cucumber, and carrots, and I think celery maybe. But I know cabbage, cucumber, and carrots. I want to say for sure. Like almost the whole time I was on it. And I was on this diet for months. The only thing about it is I don't think I was 100% plant-based. I probably was still eating some meat in there, I think. Or some meat product, I think, at that time. But anyway, that's what I juiced every week. The cabbage, carrots, and cucumber. How I got that idea to juice those things, I'm not sure, or I'm not sure if the thought was at the time is that I would go in the grocery store and pick what was kind of budget friendly for me to be able to do that, because I don't remember reading that anywhere. I know that's what I ended up juicing, and so that was like the whole time. I would take barley max, I want to say, if I remember correctly, 2 to 3 times a day, I want to say at the time. I don't remember mixing mine in with the juice. You can do it that way. I remember you can also take a teaspoon and put it on your tongue and drink water behind it. You can do it like that way. And I think maybe that's how I took it. But it can be mixed in with your juice, and it can also be placed on your tongue, and you just drink a liquid or water behind it to make it flush down. Barley max is a detox and healing grass. It also has a lot of vitamins and minerals in it also too. So for the raw part of my diet at the time, mostly what I did was eat salad. That was the raw part of my diet at the time. So, and I remember just making sure I ate a salad every day. For breakfast, I remember sometimes I would eat maybe oatmeal, and that would count as a part of my 15% like cooked at the time. And this is what I did for months and months and months, just basically that. So what started to happen? When I went to the hospital and ended up in the emergency room for the initial anxiety attack, And I went to the emergency room probably 2 or 3 times after that, because it took me a minute just to understand how anxiety attacks work, to not be like, at first when I was having it was like, I gotta go to the emergency room, because I did not, for the longest, just did not understand like what was happening. You feel like you're about to die or something, like you're having a heart attack, It took me a minute to realize I didn't always have to go to the emergency room, but I did end up there 2 or 3 times. But anyway, so initially when I came from the emergency room, I was on Ativan. That's the medicine they put me on, and it's a very tiny pill, and it is a strong pill. So when I left the hospital, I still was on Ativan at the time. So I remember later when I went for a regular checkup, that the doctor asked me, he showed me a drug, I want to say that was called, he asked me about a drug that I know about it called Paxil, I think. I can't really recall right now, but I want to say Paxil, I think. But it was something that was like 20 milligrams of it that you could take daily, that he said that would help prevent anxiety attacks. I got to pause. But I think the drug was called Paxil. I'm sorry if I'm missaying it. I know it was something that started with a P. But it was 20 milligrams of it, and he told me that it would prevent me from having anxiety attacks. So I started taking that every day. So I was on the Hallelujah diet, and as time went on, I can't really tell you how long. It wasn't, I'm going to say maybe a month or so. And then one night I started to feel really, really bad. Really, really bad. Kind of like I was already weak. When I had the initial anxiety attack, those initial ones, the first ones, my body, it took a lot of strength for my body. So I couldn't stay up longer than 15-20 minutes at a time, and it was like that for like months, where the time span I could stay up got longer, but I couldn't just be up for hours. It was just like I couldn't be up for like a whole hour without sitting down or laying down. So my body had the anxiety attacks had really taken a toll on my body, had really brought my body weight. It took a lot of strength out of it. But anyway, so I was up one night and I was feeling really, really bad, and I felt like I was going to pass out. I remember just walking up and down. It was late at night, and I remember just walking up and down the hall, leaning up against the wall, and just like, I was kind of hoping it would go away. I wasn't sure what was happening. I didn't want to wake my family up, because I was thinking maybe this is probably something that will pass. It was like in the middle of the night. So something said, it came to my mind, like, you need to cut that medicine you're taking in half. And that's what I did. And I started to feel better. So what was happening was that my body was healing, and I didn't need as much medicine. So time went on, and I was still on the Hallelujah diet, and then I started to feel really, really bad again. And something said, again, you need to cut you need to cut this medicine again and take less of it. And that's what I did. And I started to feel better. So my body, that let me know my body was really healing, and it was just needing less and less medicine, until one day I didn't have to take it at all. I didn't know at the time that a lot of people spend their life on anxiety medication. I didn't know that till later, that was the normal course for that. But I thank Yahweh that he blessed me not to have to be on that road to having to be on that medication all my life or for years, because I think I was on anxiety medication, I want to say, for less than 2 years. It might have been over a year, but I know for less than 2. And of course now that happened in my 30s. I'm 49 years old now, and my body went basically back to, as far as the strength level of it, back to what it was. Now I wanted to share with you, at the time I ate salad as my raw part, and I kind of left it at that. I didn't really do anything else as far as that. But of course you have a multitude. If you know somebody that want to do this diet, and there are a multitude of raw recipes. Hallelujah Acres at the time, the ones who this is their version of a healing diet, the Hallelujah diet. They had recipes at the time that you could do, of course, whole meals in raw and all kind of different stuff. But I just so happened did not get into all of that, but that was available, I just kept my raw part basic with salad. Now, years ago, I remember with one Hebrew Israelite group, some of the brothers and sisters did eat raw, and they would eat whole meals raw, And so I'm just sharing it to say that is possible. You don't have to just eat salad to be as your raw portion, or if someone needs to try this diet, they don't just have to do that. So I want to share, even, and there's plenty of videos on YouTube, I think, of people who eat raw and they're sharing their raw meals. Also, I have 2 books. One book I got in the last couple of years, or last few years, and I got this one in particular from Dollar Tree, and it's called Choosing Raw. Now, I took a look through this book before I bought it. It was in Dollar Tree, but a lot of times Dollar Tree does sell. Sometimes you'll run across a book that's a pretty good book, or item, some name brand items and things like that. But anyway, when I opened this book, it was a pretty good raw book with some pretty good recipes in it. I haven't used it yet, but I definitely plan on using it. I ended up checking out a book from the library that's called Raw Food Made Easy, and I checked out that book, and I really liked that the recipes were super duper simple, and definitely things I could try to do that wouldn't take a lot of time to make. And that's what that book looks like. And I just recently bought this book, Raw Food Made Easy. Now, I don't plan on going 100% raw. I don't plan on going 100% plant-based, not right now, throughout my lifetime, for example. But I do want to incorporate more and more raw food into my diet. And so that's something that I'm looking at. I think it'll be helpful in in getting my health even more together, and hopefully get a chance for my family maybe to try some of it too. But these are just 2 books. It's probably way more books than this out there, and of course you may not even want to have a book. You may want to just look at videos online, and I think on YouTube people share that. Hallelujah Acres is still up and running. This was purchased from them, but I purchased through Amazon. They have, I guess they sell it on Amazon too now. But they do have a website still, and I think it may be recipes on that website. Also, I think. But there are different ways that you can get raw recipes You don't have to limit yourself to just salad. And of course, there are all types of different salads you can make too. If you do decide, or someone you know decides to just do that, you could also do that also and just have a variety of different salads. But you can have a regular meals, a breakfast in the raw, lunch in the raw, and dinner in the raw, if you want to, or if a person wants to do that. I'm trying to think before. I recently just started back juicing. I bought a juicer from just Walmart. I Googled up reviews at the time, and I want to say I ended up with a Ninja juicer. I do plan on replacing that juicer. That juicer, it works pretty well. It is a little slower than the Jacqueline, than the one with the blade. This one doesn't have a blade, and I think the one with blades work faster. And I think they call those. I'm gonna pronounce the word wrong. Central. Starts with a C. I'm sorry, but it's the ones with the blades that I think work faster. This one does not operate with a blade, and so it works a little slower. It works, but it works a little slower, and you do have to dice the food up at least 2 inches, at least down to 2 inches. So that's what I've been using here lately to juice. I use juice recipes now, different ones that I found on Facebook, online, or out of the book that came with the juicer. So I don't just juice cabbage and celery and carrots anymore like I did before. But you can also have different vegetable juices that you can find. There's also there was a juicing recipe that I wanted to share, but I'll have to share it another time, or maybe make sure you all have the recipe. It's a juicing recipe that a brother came up with that has a lot of good things in it to help you heal over time of just different things. It has celery in it, cilantro, parsley, granny apples, trying to think, cucumbers, and lemon. And it's called, I want to say, Yahki juice, but I'll have to get that recipe to you all. So I hope this has been helpful. Excuse some of the noise that happened in the background. Please excuse the shaking of the camera a little bit. I wasn't at home by myself or anything. And sometimes different stuff was going on today. But if you have any questions for me, you can contact me and let me know. But I didn't want to wait to let you all know about this, because you may need it, or someone else may need it. Now, the intense version of the Hallelujah Acres diet, for if somebody's dealing with cancer, or they dealing with like really intense health issues, they might have that diet, that part of the diet online on their website. It's the Hallelujah Acres company. So you can type it into Google and it'll probably pop up. And maybe they have that there. I don't have that. I have one magazine left from what they used to distribute and mail years ago. And so this magazine that I have doesn't include that part of the diet. It only includes the regular part of the diet. So but I'm sure just this would be helpful, but it was a little bit more extra instructions that went if you're dealing with very serious diseases and things like that. But thank you for your time. I hope this has been helpful. Shalom, shalom.